All right, awesome. Welcome once again to the Manufacturing E-commerce Success Series. Today with us, we've got Brian Beck, who's going to be talking about Amazon. So all you people that have been considering Amazon, I'm going to let him talk about that a little bit, and I'm going to let Curt Anderson take it away from here. But if you're listening here in person on Remo, thank you for being here. Or if you're live on LinkedIn, I'm going to be watching the chat there. So I'm going to back out. You guys take it from there.
Guys, thank you. So Curt Anderson, Damon, thank you. Our friends at Exit Your Way for being the host with the most. Damon, thank you for everything. Everybody that joined us, Gene, Greg, Kevin, Matthew, who else we got here? David from Buffalo, Jeffrey Stern, Dan Bigger. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for everybody joining us on LinkedIn Live. So I am so honored. I am so thrilled to introduce my dear friend, Brian Beck. So Brian, you got to sit back. This might take a second. So Brian Beck is an e-commerce pioneer going back to 1999. I encourage you, I've dropped his LinkedIn profile, his book, and his company, Enceiba, in the chat box. So feel free to connect with Brian. Folks, I want to tell you, if you are, I don't care where you are in your e-commerce journey, you have to read Billion Dollar B2B E-commerce. This book is a game changer. It is the authority on helping companies with their e-commerce journey. So Brian, with all that, thank you for taking the time to join us today. Welcome to our show. Stop being the best kept secret. So welcome.
Hey, Curt, thanks so much. And gosh, man, you've got so much energy. I love that about you. And I'm thrilled to have this conversation with you today. And thank you for the introduction there. That just, by the way, means I'm old. Since 1999, man.
Nice. Well, so I don't know. Can people see this? So I'm backwards, but
awesome.
Pull up the book, will you please?
Sure.
There it is. I'm the son of a librarian. I'm not sure how that sounds or comes across, but I'm the son of a librarian and a digital. He's got his copy right there. Damon has his copy. And so my mother, when she ended her career, she transitioned all the books to digital. So I'm a digital guy, but I've read this book twice. And what's funny, Brian, is like when I was rereading it, preparing for this week, you need to buy 2 highlighters when you read this book. So holidays are coming if you're getting e-commerce. So Brian, let's kick things off.
Sure.
1999. It's for those of us that go back that far, and I'm an old dude myself. 1999. We're on the cusp of the internet bubble.
Yeah.
Brian Beck is young in his career, MBA from Rutgers University. He's a Jersey guy. What attracted you to e-commerce?
Well, a great question, Curt. And 99 was an interesting time. I mean, that was a time when it was really the first wave of e-commerce, right? It was when this brand new model was happening. And what was so exciting to me at the time about it was really just the fast pace, the intellectual challenge, the change. And really the whole notion that the world was changing with this sort of internet thing, and that that I could be a part of that. And I was in my 20s. I was working in New York City. I went to work for an e-com consultancy way back then called Scient. Some of you who are old might remember that company. No, we're not old. But anyway, it was a real great experience, and I stayed in the industry since then. So gosh, 22 years. And it's been quite a journey, and it has lived up to why I got into the field, which is that it's always changing and evolving. So exciting.
So tons of cover here. We have our New Yorkers here in the crowd. We've got Dan Bigger, who's a manufacturer, Gene, she's Andrea. So we have this topic is perfect for these folks. Okay.
Great.
So let's begin to, I'm a manufacturer. Okay. And e-commerce is new to me. And you hear a lot of the myths with e-commerce. Maybe over time, some of them have gone away, but either confirm or dispel some myths for manufacturers. Are there challenges for me as far as I put my products online? Is Amazon going to steal my products?
Right.
I'm going to talk about channel conflicts, but let's start with what are some of the risks that I have as a manufacturer and I want to put my products on Amazon?
Yeah, great question, Curt. I mean, there's what a lot of folks don't realize is that Amazon, in addition to a place where you can buy product, it's really become a search engine. So I'll flip the question around on you a little bit. There's a relevancy issue here, right? Whereas in the past, a lot of B2B buyers and consumers, They've learned about products in other ways, either through in the B2B world, a physical sales force, in the consumer world through searching Google or other places or going to stores. Look, Amazon has become now 70% of product search in the United States, right? Increasingly abroad. And so you've got, it's an incredible fact. You think about it. 70% of people are starting their searches on Amazon for products, not on Google, not in traditional ways. And so there's a relevancy risk I often cite, and I talk about this in the book, relevancy risk to manufacturers who are not represented in some way on Amazon, not only for your brand name, right, but also even for your product category. One of my favorite exercises to do, Curt, is to go to with senior folks at manufacturers this week. We're going to go online and we're going to look at Amazon and we're going to look at a category search term for their product. I did this the other day with a big producer of safety equipment, and we looked at some of their search terms related to hard hats and other things. And out come these products that are selling. I've got tools that can see this, millions of dollars from products from manufacturers they've never heard of, right? And these are companies that are created specifically for e-commerce and Amazon. And they're taking share today from these traditional manufacturers, and the manufacturers don't even realize it. And so the competitive landscape has changed. So if you think about risk, to me, the risk of not being there is pretty great, right? Because you're risking your very relevancy to the customer as more of this search volume shifts there. Now, there's other risks too, and we can dive into channel conflict. Look, you can't ignore your traditional channels if you're a manufacturer. You may have a lot of your revenue coming from a direct sales force, from distributors, from retailers that are buying your product and reselling it. My recommendation and suggestion is never to ignore that. You've got to pay attention to that, and you have to respect it. But you also have to know what's happening in the market with your ultimate customer, the people buying and using your product, right?
Absolutely. And so perfect segue. Let's go into this. So, that 70%, every time I talk to you, every time I read the book, again, folks, 2 highlighters when you buy Brian's book.
Yeah.
You're going to be looking like crazy. But, and when you look at your background, you've been part of Inc. 500 companies, Internet Retailer 500. 100 years ago, my e-commerce business, we were in the top 1,000 for Internet Retailer. I know how hard it is. You've been in the top 500. You've dealt with top 50 Fortune 500 companies. What was staggering to me, 2 things. What you just said, was it 50 cents of every dollar, I think is e-commerce dollars, Amazon. Now you're saying 70% of product search. That's new to me. That is scary. So that alone is why you need to be on Amazon. Yeah. But here's another thing. Back in my e-commerce days, when I had my company, conversion rates, man, if we got 2, 3, I remember one product line, we were hitting 7%. We were, you're popping shampoo.
That's right.
If I read this correctly, in your book, you talk about Prime it's over 70% conversion rates. Did I read that right?
You did. It's crazy, right? Yeah. So 20 years of my career is spent trying to optimize conversion rates, like Curt, for and if we got to 3%, we were celebrating. Exactly. Amazon's Prime conversion rate is 74%. 74%.
Yeah.
Okay. So the intention to buy, when someone goes to Amazon, and everybody in the room here, David, Jeffrey, Greg, Gene, all you guys, raise your hand virtually. If you're an Amazon Prime member, guess what? All of you just raised your hand. Right? Actually, maybe we can do that with this cool platform.
Yeah, we can.
Right. So, but the point is, guys, that when people go to Amazon, there's a high level of intention to purchase, right? And why is that? Well, Amazon, number one, has created such an assortment. 600 million products are on Amazon. It's a pretty big number.
Again, I didn't hear that.
600 million products on Amazon.
Dude, that is, oh my God.
So Bezos, when he founded this thing, he said, we're going to be the everything store, right? And he wrote a great book to read, by the way. There's a book called The Everything Store, and it's all about the history of Amazon. It's a fantastic read if you want to study them. But Bezos said, we're going to be the everything store. And he's accomplished that. If you think about it, they just launched pharmacy, guys. They're in a lot of categories.
Right.
And so number one is assortment, but also it's ease it's a focus on the customer, removing all the friction from the process and making it easy for the customer to buy. Now, they've done that with consumers for 20 years, and they've done a great job. guess what they're doing now in B2B? They're applying the same principles to the traditional B2B process. And guess what? The B2B process right now is not very well served by the traditional distributor. In some cases, it is, but there's a lot of categories where it's not. There's a lot of distributors that have a long way to go to level up to meet the customer expectation for digital. So Amazon, has made it easy for the consumer. Now they're making it easy for the B2B buyer. And I can give you lots of examples of that if you want to dive in on it. But the point is, this is all coming for the B2B category as well.
Yeah, there's that search, and like Damon and I've talked about, like client I've worked with, we talk about like using configurators and trying to break those barriers, making life easier, make it all about the customer, making it all about them, making it easier for them to buy. And so the thing is, what you're talking about, and again, that custom manufacturer or that job shop where they don't have that proprietary product, they feel left out of that e-commerce party, and now this is even more scary or staggering. To say like, boy, now I can't find your product, your proprietary process, or your services on Amazon. I'm going to find somebody that figures that out. Yeah. So that's even more of a driving force. Again, let's talk about that channel conflict. Our buddy Dave up in Buffalo, he has a question. If the manufacturer goes direct from their website, will that alienate your distributors? And I'm sure you have tons of examples. In Brian's book, I love the example. You give a great example. I believe it's Avery Products.
Oh, Avery, yeah.
Ubiquitous, envelopes. We've seen them everywhere forever. And you give a great step-by-step. So again, when you buy Brian's book, check, read the whole thing thoroughly, but check out that one section on Avery. Can you talk a little bit about that? How does that manufacturer prevent, avoid, or embrace their channel partners to prevent those conflicts?
Well, it's I have a whole chapter on that, right? And it's Curt, it's not an easy question, right? For a lot of manufacturers who have these traditional, and Avery being a good example of this, where they have traditional retailers they've sold to, distributors, et cetera. You don't want to ignore and disintermediate them. What you need to do is respect the channel. And I lay out a multi-step process in the book. In that chapter, it talks about how do you do this. Look, ultimately, my first piece of advice to anyone who's dealing with this is you've got to understand, manufacturer, the ultimate buyer of your product and user. This is the person in the field using the product and how they're using it and what's important to them. I was having this conversation 2 hours ago with a big manufacturer of lawnmowers. Okay, and you know who they are if I told you. But the point is that they are they need to, as everyone does, needs to understand how these folks are using the product in the field and then work backwards. And then you want to understand, how they've traditionally bought the product. Why have they bought the product from these different channels, right? So if they bought the product from a retailer or distributor, what value did that retailer or distributor add to that that customer's journey? Was it expertise in the application of the lawnmower or whatever, use of the equipment, that sort of thing? Is there real value there? And if there's not real value there, guess who's disintermediating that? Well, it's Amazon, right? If it's really just about a transaction and your channel is just all about price and selection, and convenience of purchase, guess who does that better than anybody in the world? So, you also got to understand that end customer is using using Amazon as a transactional vehicle and a research vehicle. So then it's about managing your price and your assortment and your channel strategy. And so this gets down to understanding specific products, specific product lines, and even brands within your product line, that you can then use those tools to make sure that you're looking at each of those channels, feeding them the right kinds of products. But it also ties into your foundation, right? You need a foundation of channel control. You need distribution agreements. Many manufacturers have MAP policies, many of the minimum advertised price policies, where you're asking your channels to adhere to certain pricing. You have to do that carefully and within the scope of the law and all those things. But there's best practices around this. This is, I can't remember which chapter number it is. I think it's maybe 5 or 6. But there's a whole strategy to this, and it works. And when it's done well, you're managing your pricing, you're limiting the channel conflict. Many manufacturers are saying, I want Amazon to be only for me, right? I'm going to be the only one in Amazon. I'm going to take all my distribution and retail out of it because I want to control the price and my presence on this very important search engine.
Yeah.
Right. So it's there's a couple different strategies. It's not all or nothing, but point is it can be managed and can be managed effectively and respecting your channel at the same time, your channel partners.
That's fantastic. And my dear friend Andrea, friend here in New York, she's a small business development advisor for the Small Business Development Center here in New York, and she's a thriving entrepreneur. She has this incredible coffee company. So we were just having recently a nice conversation about a company like that. So entrepreneur, she has this incredible coffee product. It's a gourmet, high-end coffee. And tipping her, and we were looking at Amazon. We're seeing some different companies are selling her product on Amazon.
Right.
So let's talk about. So the question she asked in the chat box, that 70% is that advertising within Amazon. So let's talk about that for a second. About the organic search versus or combined with spending advertising dollars, that pay-per-click model with Amazon, and then someone like an Andrea who's maybe just tipping her toes for the first time.
Yep.
What's advice for Andrea to get into Amazon?
Yeah, so take those in turn here. So first, the 70%, Andrea, what I'm referring to there is the number of people that go into on the web, launch a browser, they have the intention of finding a product, and where do they go first? Do they go to Google and type in the product category? Let's say it's coffee, dark roast coffee, right? Mm-hmm. 5 years ago, 70% of people went to Google and did that, dark roast coffee. And now 70% of people they pop open Amazon and go dark roast coffee. So that's what I'm referring to in terms of
that's mind blowing. Yeah, that is mind blowing. So again, with the pay-per-click model or like advertising, and again, you're dealing with a lot of large companies, Cardinal Health, so on and so forth. For that solopreneur, the smaller manufacturers, how do you advise like tipping your toe into like that advertising dollar, getting involved with Amazon?
So advertising is, so if you think about Amazon, you have to think about Amazon almost as an ecosystem of sort of levers you have, right? Mm-hmm. And if we think about it that way, advertising is one of them. The others are things like content and mm-hmm. Amazon Prime fulfillment, mm-hmm. And making sure you have the right breadth and stock on products, right? So there's a number of things, and there's also some brand elements, right? Some brand tools you can use. Advertising is one piece of it. And what you're doing with advertising is you're helping to build momentum on your product and your brand inside of Amazon. So the starting point for a company like Andrea's is making sure you have great content, making sure you have the good brand protection pieces in place. Your brand should be registered using something called Amazon Brand Registry. You want to set up a storefront and use some of the brand enhanced content settings that you have available to you. So when you have the foundation, and that, by the way, that foundation also includes making sure your products are Prime eligible, right? So again, raise of hands, how many of you are Prime members and using Amazon Prime to sort and look for products that are only Prime eligible? That's most of you, by the way. That you want to make sure your foundation is right with all those elements I described. Then it's time for advertising. So what is advertising in Amazon? It's really similar in a lot of ways to Google, in that it's pay-per-click, right? So you're finding keywords that work for you. You're bidding on those keywords. You're directing the searches to very specific products. It's different than Amazon or than Google in some ways. They don't give you as much information or visibility. Amazon doesn't. Unfortunately, they have it. They don't reveal it. but there's ways to use the data they do provide to be effective. So it's keyword advertising. Now, where do you start? You don't have to start with an enormous budget, but you want to give yourself enough budget to test and learn. So $500 or $1,000 a month to get started, to understand what keywords are going to work for you. There's some structural things you want to learn about. You can find some of the stuff on YouTube. There's instructional, things like this. There's also instructions on best practices. Amazon provides some through their site, etc. So you want to learn, but testing and learning is the right approach for advertising.
Right. Perfect. So that's extremely helpful for that small manufacturer. Now, I think, you and I have talked in the past about sometimes an OEM, somebody that possesses that proprietary product, and then we're gonna dig into a question from my friend Dan Bigger in a minute for those contract manufacturers. But when you have that proprietary product and you find your product is on Amazon, and you're not familiar with that company, what's your experience been with that? Or like, how are these companies selling your product as a manufacturer on Amazon, and you didn't really even know you had a relationship with that?
You may not. All right. So, all right, it may be sort of the extended family there.
Is that common? Do you find that frequently?
So, okay, Curt. So we did a study. Enceiba did. I would say it was about 6 months ago, with some partners, and we asked manufacturers this question. We said, "How many of you are on Amazon? Or your products are on Amazon?" And 70% of them said, "Yes, my product is on Amazon." And then we asked the follow-on question: "How many of you know who's selling your product on Amazon?" And all of the sellers, and 70% of them said, "We don't know who they are."
We have sales reps out there that are representing our product. We have no clue who they are. So how do you handle, like, is that an opportunity to like create those relationships, strengthen those relationships? What do you tell your clients?
So yeah, it depends. Okay, so couple points here. First, knowing who. So typically, what happens is these folks are they're buying from a distributor, or they're buying from a retailer, or they're buying some other way, where you sold the product to someone and they're rebuying it. So that's sort of they're buying it from another source. It's not always from you. Sometimes it is from you, and they set up other seller names on Amazon, and you may not recognize them, right? So what do you do about it if you're a manufacturer? Well, first and foremost, inventory them, right? Understand who they are in terms of who the seller names are, and get a sense for how big is this issue. Sometimes we see 40, 50, 60 sellers on large, well-known brand names. So you want to start by inventorying them. Then you want to understand if they're actually adding value to your business, your brand, your product set, beyond just selling on Amazon. Because what I argue is that a manufacturer has a very compelling case to sell their own product on Amazon, right? To sell it and get the whole retail price for the product.
Yeah.
And if these folks who are reselling aren't doing anything other than selling on Amazon, you're giving away margin. You ought to take it for yourself. And the way to do that, there's some techniques you can use to capture those sales for yourself. You can go in there as the manufacturer, and you can use brand registry and other things to take control of your content on those listings, to take control of your brand name, your brand storefront, etc. So you want to use that, but it's not the only place. So you have to do things outside of Amazon to gain control of Amazon, and that includes things like distribution agreements. Making sure that when you sell your product, the people you're selling it to have a clear understanding of where they're authorized to sell your product, and there's best practices for that. So there's a number of sort of elements to the strategy there, Curt, where you have to do a couple things together to gain control of it, but it can be gained. And I argue that for many manufacturers like Andrea, I mean, there maybe is no real reason to have these folks selling your product on Amazon. You should get those sales. Right. Or you may authorize them to sell on Amazon because they're doing a lot of other stuff. They've got it in their stores and their distribution centers or whatever. So
right. So let's talk about that 1 second. And again, we're going to get to that custom manufacturer question. So say that manufacturer, so like, Andrea, small manufacturer, my friend then bigger, we're all stretched so thin, time is limited. And what's common with manufacturers for their legacy, not strong marketers, right? They're not the retailer on the corner that's the guerrilla marketer. It's a little bit new to them, and especially with 2020 trade shows are gone. So if you have that, the OEM that has that finished good proprietary product, they're seeing it on Amazon, and they just don't have the bandwidth or the marketing, that guerrilla marketing, or they just didn't want to deal with it, but they would love to have that presence on Amazon. Is there value or benefit to tag team with those guerrilla marketers that are on Amazon, and then you just pull it, there's a value to them capturing that margin and just pull it off their plate?
Yeah, well, I'd argue self-servingly, you should just hire us.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, hire my dear friend Brian Beck.
Okay. So, but let me answer your question, because this is a strategic question, right? So, one path you can take is to hire us, right, to help you build your own program, remove sellers from Amazon, the people you don't want, and own it for yourself. Right, one path. It's a common path, and some very large manufacturers are doing that, by the way, that we're working with, and some are smaller. But the other path is to do what you said, and these aren't also mutually exclusive, but strategically, you could say to some of those resellers, "Hey guys, let's partner up. I'm gonna pick one or two of you, and I want you to do a great job for me on Amazon. Here's my criteria. What that means, I want you to put great content up there, talk about my brand. I'm going to give you some videos to use or whatever. I'm going to give you product. I'm going to give you maybe even special pricing. Right. And I'm gonna go and then make you basically my Amazon partner. I'm gonna take everybody else off if you want to or not, depends on your situation. But you could then try to remove the rest of the field, and they're gonna do it because gosh, I have this great pricing, I have this connection to the manufacturer. I'm going to be able to lift my sales because these other people are going to move off the brand. Maybe I get some exclusive product. So yeah, that's definitely a path. And that path, by the way, can be for a small manufacturer, but there's also really big manufacturers that do the same thing. So it can apply to many different business models.
Exactly. And I think if Greg Michu still, he's still with us. So Greg Michu from Madison, Wisconsin owns a firm, Woodbound. He's speaking next Friday, and he talks about the digital twin. And what I feel that you're describing is really that perfect opportunity for the manufacturer to align themselves with these digital sales reps, if you will, and support them, give them the content, give them, if they're doing it anyway, let's give them some incentives, motivate them to, focus on your product, not your competitors. So let's dig into that, the custom manufacturer. We're doing good on time. We're coming in the top of the hour. But Dan Bigger, he great guy. He's a custom manufacturer, marketer for a custom manufacturer. You'll love this. Maybe you should be a guest sometime. They do a Twitter chat group every Thursday, 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock here in the East Coast. And what they've done, they have manufacturers and manufacturer marketers from all over the country. And Paul from New Jersey, Paul's in there. He's a fellow New Jerseyan right there. They do this Twitter chat, and I hosted it a few weeks, man. It was like the fastest hour of my life. And they're just going rapid fire. So anyway, so I want to put that in your radar. But there's a lot of custom manufacturers that don't have that proprietary product. Mm-hmm. With what you're describing with the 70% search, like that, you just blew my mind. I didn't know that. That scares me. I don't say scares. It motivates me more. My preach is kind of helping that custom manufacturer create that e-commerce presence. That's kind of my shtick or wheelhouse, if you will. Yeah. What do you tell a custom manufacturer that doesn't have that finished good? How can they exploit their they have a proprietary process? Mm-hmm. How can they join the e-commerce party, and how can they take advantage of Amazon?
Well, Amazon has a program for private label manufacturer and other where you can actually build product for Amazon. Amazon has about 450 private label products, and many of those private label products are sourced are in partnership, most of them actually, with manufacturers like that can produce components or perhaps a finished good for Amazon. So I think that's one way to do it. Amazon, though, is not a you think about other channels, Curt, like Alibaba and others, where there's it's more of a componentry, more of a supply chain type solution. Yep. Amazon is more of a finished good solution for B2B and just for e-commerce in general. I'd encourage Dan and others to also take a look at other marketplaces too, like Alibaba, because that may be a good fit for them.
Right, and that's a perfect segue. Who's speaking for us too? Greg Michu is speaking next Friday. Kate, our dear friend Kate Anderson, is speaking from Alibaba. Yeah, she's speaking 2 weeks from today. And so Alibaba, we're here to talk about Amazon. And Brian's done a great job for Alibaba. You spoke over the summer. And that's how Brian and I met. He was a keynote speaker at a conference, man, like early COVID. I think it was like in May. Yes. And we became fast friends, and just I can't respect you and admire the work you've done more. And so for the custom manufacturer, but what I've been talking about, Dan, maybe we could talk offline, is like trying to help them. They have that proprietary process. They make widgets for other people. Are there opportunities to scale that proprietary process for other manufacturers, for other things,
Well, I mean, the other thing, Curt, is, gosh, Amazon is so large and the reach is so big that, if a company has a process and can produce something in a category, you can also identify areas in Amazon where there are opportunities and gaps for products to sell, and you could create something specifically for the Amazon marketplace. And so there's tools that you can use as a marketer to figure out what those niches are. And so that can be helpful, Jungle Scout and some of the others that are in the market today to do that.
Absolutely. And I just, and my dear friend Sherry, I think she's in Chicago. I think
Yes.
I'm ready to find a digital twin for my first product to free up time to focus on my second item. So that is awesome, Sherry. And so Brian, to wrap up, I'm a CEO. I'm a manufacturer. I'm a Dan Bigger. I'm a marketer at a busy manufacturer. What's your advice to them? Like how from, trying, and we've had no marketing in our, we're a 30-year manufacturer. We've never had a marketing department. How do you, and I know that's a pretty broad question, but how do you attack the market and how can you get that footprint into Amazon as quickly as possible? If that question made sense there.
Yeah. So again, a couple of different paths there. I mean, speed to market's important. When I talk to manufacturers, there's a couple of about their e-commerce strategy in general. That you've got e-commerce, your own e-commerce you can get into, which 50% of manufacturers don't have e-commerce today. So it's a big opportunity.
Yeah.
A lot of them are launching it though, right? So so the window's closing a bit there. But that I view that often as a second step. The first step being Amazon, and the reason for that is that there's you're preparing data, right, for Amazon. You're preparing your product data, your information, and you can use a lot of your learnings from that Amazon program to then launch your own e-commerce. Now, accelerating Amazon itself, the results from that, really, you're going to look to either leverage one of your existing resellers, as you were describing, or a set of them. Or you're gonna hire a company like us to get you started fast, because hiring people to do this internally, it can be done, and certainly happens all the time. But they're also hard to find. We know we hire them, and they're expensive because we know we hire them. so there's there's a set of things you need to do, and it's really about learning and not messing up the best practices for launching a program, making sure you get off to a clean start. It's easy to screw up. So you want someone by your side to walk you through that and help you.
Exactly. And again, for that B2B plug, $1 billion B2B e-commerce. So you guys, the holidays are coming, perfect stuffer, put it on your list. Couple quick comments. Again, Greg Mishu is speaking next week. Brian, you and Greg should connect. He is phenomenal. So he dropped a little note. So when anybody wants to click that link for his digital twin, we were talking about it last night. It is mind blowing. David, our friend in Buffalo, asks, Amazon is a mass marketing platform. Are they good for products that are industry specific?
Oh, great question.
And you're just the right man for that answer.
It depends on the industry.
Yeah.
So if you look at okay, so let's look at what Amazon is doing in B2B, which is Amazon Business, right? They have created some experiences in Amazon Business which are specific to industry categories. So depending on the industry you're in, you have to look at what they're doing in that industry. I'll give you an example. The Amazon Business team has created an experience for medical professionals to buy through Amazon. And they can buy regulated FDA products, type 2, type 3 regulated devices, and they're doing some volume in it now. So it allows a doctor or a dentist or some kind of credentialed medical professional to upload their information through Amazon, and then unlocks an assortment of regulated devices they can then purchase through Amazon. We've got clients that make stuff that's used in dental procedures in the mouth. You can't buy this stuff and do this at home.
Yeah.
Right? So that's just an example. So, and what's amazing too, guys, is from a data perspective, there's a misconception that Amazon's B2B volume is all office supplies. It's not. In fact, it is the selection and the volumes that they're doing in these categories like MRO, industrial products, medical products, dental products, all these other categories that you wouldn't think are doing volume. They're doing volume, and they're projected to get this $70 billion in B2B volume within 3 years. By 2023, we're going to see them as one of the largest industrial distributors and just distributors in general in the world. They're penetrating these categories very quickly, and many companies don't realize it. So manufacturers, again, I get back to the first thing I said, Curt, it's about relevance and staying relevant to your customer, at least with part of your assortment, right?
Yeah,
exactly. And there's a lot of options with like Zorro's a great marketplace, DigiKey.
Yeah.
I think was it your book that you talk about Honeywell launched a marketplace for the aerospace? right? And so, and again, I want to be respectful of everybody's time because we're at time, but we're getting a lot of nice questions here.
That's great.
Greg asks, people are coming on Amazon with the intent to buy. How are these retailers getting on the radar for customers to get them on Amazon? I love that question. What do you think on that, Greg?
So how do they? So I make sure I understand the question. So
how are these retailers getting on the radar for customers to get them on Amazon? Here's one thing I want to share. If a close friend, client of mine, Jeffrey Stern, owns Voice Express. And I think I saw he's in our group today. And phenomenal company. If you go to Build-A-Bear and bought a bear for a child, and that bear speaks to you, he manufactures that little device, that voice technology that speaks to you. I have
one in there, and then my son's room.
That came. So thank Jeffrey for that.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
So now what he's done on his website is he's put Amazon, a big broad Amazon button and Alibaba button to lend that credibility. And now with you saying that 70%, and I think you were talking about that in your book, you're talking about that trust factor.
Yeah.
So if I do the Google search, this is just mind blowing to me. 70% of product search is now on Amazon. Everybody, please let that sink in. We've been thinking about Google. We've got to optimize for Google. You certainly do. However, look what's happening now on Amazon. So as you do that, to make that conversion and the optimize for Amazon, what does the manufacturer do to, kind of tying with Greg's question or what Jeffrey Stern is doing? They're trying to solidify that trust on their website by you've landed on my website, so you found my first.
Yep.
But I'm going to build that trust by saying, hey, I'm also on Amazon in case you're more comfortable. You have Prime. You just feel safer going to Amazon to buy. I'm starting to encourage my clients to have that Amazon button, and I think that's what Greg is asking there.
Well, I think ultimately, guys, you who are trying to sell product in the marketplace, ultimately, let the customer choose the channel, right? Don't dictate the channel. Let the customer buy where they want to buy. You're the manufacturer. Look, if I'm a distributor, the story is different, right? Or the retailer. But if you're a manufacturer of product, let them buy where they want to buy. Give them this control. And so, Curt, to your point, absolutely. Give them different options on your own site. The question was, also how is Amazon getting all this traffic? Well, ultimately, it's the best way, right? It's because customers are opting to use it naturally. They're not going to Google and going to Amazon. That happens, but it's really people going right to the place where they feel like their need is being met, which is finding a product very quickly among 600 million products, finding the product you want very fast, and then having the trust that you're going to get that product once it's ordered without an issue. And if there is, in the rare cases where there's issues with your order, guess what? Amazon takes care of you. Right. They put the customer first like nobody else does, guys. Yeah. They do a great job. This is the reason they're getting all of this traffic. It's the relevancy of the search. It's the ease of use. It's all those things together that make it. The customers voted for it very clearly in B2C and increasingly now in B2B.
Right, and they're speaking with their credit cards, and that's the thing is now as consumers, there's not a separation that I'm a B2B buyer. It's human to human. It's not business to business, not business to consumer. It's as consumers, we now have a higher expectation of that level of trust. We want to buy. We want 3 clicks and I'm done. I've got 1,000 other things to do today. I want the product delivered within a couple of days. Yeah. So kind of wrap up on this, back to that custom manufacturer, what's interesting, that concept. So client Damon and I have talked about numerous times. I had a client, they were a wire harness manufacturer, and they just kept niching down, and they found a product that they had that was in their wheelhouse that they make. And they're like, hey, let's just convert this proprietary process and turn it into a proprietary product. Right. So they're selling it on their website. All of a sudden, Boeing starts buying from them. Halliburton starts buying from them. They like, hey, on a whim, we're like, let's put the product on Amazon. They're now doing tens of thousands of dollars on Amazon. They have the Amazon's Choice button, all purely on a whim. And now some Fortune 500 companies are finding them on Amazon and now coming to their website and then emailing, calling and saying, hey, we have a special project. I saw that you're selling that particular product. I need something different. Can you make this? Now I'll give you a CAD drawing. But because they had the presence on Amazon, now they're engaged with Boeing, Virgin Hyperloop, some major companies because of Amazon.
That's a great example, Curt. I mean, that is a perfect example of what Amazon is in terms of a search and research engine. And if you're not there to be discovered, right, then you're risking that wouldn't have happened. What you just described.
It would have never happened. And I don't know, being a search guy, Greg Mishew's a big SEO guy. Paul's a marketer in New Jersey. We can't always tell, did they find us on Google? Did they find us on Zoro, Amazon? Where did they find us? But boy, when we can create an engagement as marketers for our clients, or a Dan Bigger for his manufacturer, to open up a new door. And how can we do this as 2020 has been so tough. Our budgets are super tight, but there's great opportunities for like an Andrea, for a Dan Bigger. How can we do this as inexpensively as possible? And minimize that risk where, like, if it doesn't work, well, it's, as marketers, man, we're constantly, I don't have any hair left. We're always going back to the drawing board, right? So anyway, Brian, any closing thoughts that you want to share with us? Again, your book, what you do, an amazing job. Anything you want to share?
Thank you. The only thing I'll leave people with is, in particularly with B2B and manufacturing, right? I find that a lot of folks are very conservative and they're afraid to take action. Mm-hmm. So I'd encourage you all to, if I can leave you with anything, even if you don't understand every aspect of this, take some action, get started. I have some great case studies. In fact, the first case study in the book is a company that 15 years ago took action in the face of not knowing what they were dealing with e-commerce and Amazon. And they did. And today their business is about half digital and they're benefiting from it. Gosh, they're doing great in COVID. Why? Because they took action. Yep. So if I leave you this one thing, it's not buy my book, which would be great if you did, or hire Enceiba, which would be great if you did, but take action, guys. That's my main mantra for 2020.
And I'm sorry, like, I know we really hammered the book. I can't support your book, recommend your book strong enough. And we'll close on this. In his book, he says, with e-commerce, you want to future-proof your business. That's like future-proof. If there's one takeaway today out of everything, future-proof your business. And Brian, I love this quote. Your current business today, you're going to feel like it's the rotary phone once you make that plunge into e-commerce, dude. Yeah. God bless you. That was awesome. So everybody on LinkedIn Live, anybody out there live, thank you for taking your time for joining us. Everybody here on Remo, thank you. We're going to go back to the tables. You can talk with Brian one-on-one. Brian, dude, you're my soul brother, my brother from another mother. You're such a good friend, man. I love our relationship. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I know Damon appreciates it.
Yes, so thank you very much.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, Curt. Same back at you, man. I'll be hanging out here for the table.
All right, we're gonna be shut down on LinkedIn Live. We're gonna be back at the tables here on Remo.